Stop smiling for a second. Feel that pressure in your chest? That's the sound of a door closing behind someone who thought consequences were a rumor. You already know why you're here. Because this story isn't about the devil as a myth. It's about the moment someone pushed life too far, laughed at every warning, disrespected every boundary, and then realized the universe doesn't argue. It introduces you. Bro fucked around, and then he met the devil personally. Not in fire, not with horns, no theatrics. The devil never wastes energy on drama. The devil shows up as clarity, as silence, as the moment where the room gets very still and your stomach drops because you suddenly understand exactly how stupid you've been. That's when it hits. That's when the jokes die. That's when arrogance evaporates and what's left is naked truth staring back at you without blinking. You see, you were never scared of darkness. You were scared of accountability. You loved chaos when you thought you controlled it. You flirted with destruction because you thought you were special. You thought rules were for weaker minds, that consequences were for slower people, that pain was something you could outrun with intelligence, charm, or timing. You thought wrong. The devil doesn't chase you. The devil waits, patient, amused, watching you stack bad decisions like dominoes and call it confidence, watching you confuse luck with skill, watching you disrespect forces you didn't bother to understand. And when the moment finally arrives, when you've crossed just enough lines to seal the deal, the devil doesn't roar. He smiles. Because now you're exactly where you need to be, face to face with yourself. That's the part nobody tells you. Meeting the devil isn't about punishment. It's about revelation. It's about realizing that the monster you were running from learned everything it knows by watching you. Same hunger, same ambition, same lack of mercy. The difference? You pretended to be innocent. The devil never lies about what he is. This is where the paradox hits. Because in that moment, when fear crawls up your spine and your identity starts cracking, you're standing at the crossroads between saint and psychopath, angel and demon, victim and architect. You can collapse into regret and beg the universe for mercy, or you can stand up straight and accept the upgrade you accidentally unlocked. Pain is the curriculum, fear is the instructor, and the devil? He's just the examiner checking if you actually learned something or if you were just talking loud. This is where weak minds break. They panic, they cry, they swear they'll change if they're just allowed to escape the consequences. They promise morality after damage, humility after arrogance, wisdom after the lesson already cost them everything. And the universe hears none of it. Because growth doesn't respond to apologies. It responds to transformation. But you're different. You don't beg. You don't deny. You don't flinch. You stare right back and realize something terrifying and empowering at the same time. You were built for this encounter. Every betrayal hardened you. Every loss sharpened you. Every time you were pushed into the dark and forced to adapt, something inside you learned how to move without light. You didn't become cruel. You became precise. You didn't lose empathy. You learned control. You didn't abandon morality. You learned when mercy is earned and when it's wasted. That's when the devil stops smiling. Because unpredictability is power. And you're no longer predictable. You're not purely good anymore, which means you're not naive. You're not purely evil, which means you're not reckless. You exist in that dangerous middle space where strategy replaces emotion and patience replaces impulse, where you can play the villain when necessary and the savior when it serves the mission. This is the evolution nobody prepares you for. The moment you realize that surviving darkness doesn't make you corrupted, it makes you informed. It teaches you where lines actually are, not where people pretend they are. It teaches you how systems collapse, how egos fracture, how fear really works when stripped of bravado. Bro fucked around and met the devil personally, and came back different, calmer, quieter, more dangerous. Because now you don't underestimate consequences, you weaponize foresight. You don't chase chaos, you deploy it selectively. You don't need to prove anything anymore, because you've already seen what happens when arrogance meets reality head-on. The real power isn't scaring others. It's knowing exactly how far things can go and choosing when to stop and when to push harder. It's understanding both sides of the board. Heaven taught you ideals. Hell taught you execution. And standing between them, that's where influence lives. So when people look at you now and say you're colder, darker, harder to read, they're right. But what they don't understand is that you didn't lose your soul. You reforged it under pressure. The devil didn't take you. He tested you. And you walked out carrying knowledge most people never survive long enough to earn. And here's the part nobody sees coming. The part that makes the story stick in your bones long after the fear fades. After you meet the devil personally, you don't walk away shaking. You walk away awake. Because once you've stared consequence in the eyes, everything else feels smaller. Louder people don't scare you. Threats don't impress you. Chaos doesn't rush you. You've already been to the edge where masks burn off, and all that's left is truth and choice. You've already felt that moment where the universe leans in close and silently asks, "So, who are you, really?" And that question changes everything. You start to notice how fake the world is, how people posture with borrowed confidence, how morality is often just fear wearing makeup, how good people avoid darkness not because they're pure, but because they'd shatter if they ever had to face themselves without excuses. You see it in their eyes, the panic they try to hide, the way they judge loudly to avoid being judged internally. But you don't judge anymore. You understand. You understand how easy it is to fall, how thin the line is between hero and villain, how a single bad decision, repeated enough times, can rewrite someone's entire identity. You understand that monsters aren't born. They're cornered, pressured, humiliated, ignored, and then forced to adapt in ways polite society pretends don't exist. And that understanding, that's power. Because now you move differently, you listen more than you speak. You observe patterns instead of reacting to noise. You let people underestimate you because you know exactly how dangerous that mistake can be for them. You don't need validation. You don't need applause. You don't even need revenge. You've got something colder, something cleaner, control. The devil taught you that emotions are expensive, that impulse is sloppy, that rage without direction is just free entertainment for your enemies. And you learned the lesson the hard way, the only way that actually sticks. Through loss, through fear, through moments where you thought you were finished and discovered you still had teeth. This is where the angel and demon inside you stop fighting and start cooperating. The angel keeps you human, keeps you grounded, keeps you aware of what's worth protecting. The demon handles the rest. The demon knows when to stay silent, when to let people expose themselves, when to apply pressure slowly instead of swinging wildly. The demon knows that the most devastating moves are invisible until it's too late to stop them. The demon understands that mercy is a strategy, not a weakness, and that withholding it can be an act of precision, not cruelty. And that balance? That's what makes you terrifying to people who only live on one side of themselves. They can't read you. They don't know if you're about to forgive them or erase them from relevance entirely. They don't know if your silence means peace or preparation. They don't know if your smile is empathy or a warning. And that uncertainty eats at them because predictable people are safe, and you are no longer predictable. You didn't just survive meeting the devil. You absorbed the lesson. You learned that the world doesn't reward innocence. It tests awareness, that life isn't fair, but it is consistent, that every action echoes, every shortcut charges interest, and every game has a final boss, even if you don't believe in one. And now you walk like someone who knows where the traps are. You don't rush into battles. You let them come to you. You don't announce your strength. You let others discover it at the worst possible moment. You don't need to dominate rooms. You shift the energy just by entering them. Because when you faced the worst-case scenario and lived, nothing else can bluff you. Bro fucked around and met the devil personally. And the devil realized something uncomfortable. You weren't there to be broken. You were there to be refined. That meeting didn't end you. It stripped you of illusions. It burned off weakness. It replaced fear with clarity and chaos with intent. And now, whether the world likes it or not, you move with the quiet confidence of someone who knows exactly what happens when limits are ignored. So let them laugh. Let them talk. Let them assume you're still playing the same game you were before. You know better. You've seen what waits on the other side of arrogance. You felt the cost of ignorance, and you came back carrying something rare. An understanding of darkness that doesn't consume you but answers to you. And that's why you don't rush. That's why you don't explain. That's why you don't flinch. Because once you've met the devil personally and walked away standing, everything else is just noise. And the quiet part, the part nobody says out loud because it scares them too much to admit. After that meeting, you stop needing permission. You stop asking life for signs. You stop waiting for approval. You stop hoping things will work out. Hope is for people who haven't seen how fast everything can collapse. You don't hope anymore. You calculate. You prepare. You move with intention, not optimism. And that shift alone separates you from 90% of the population. Because once you've met the devil personally, you understand something brutal and freeing at the same time. Safety was never real. It was a story people told themselves to sleep at night. A soft lie to keep fragile minds functioning. You see now that stability is rented, not owned. That power belongs to those who can adapt when the floor disappears. And you learned how to stand in free fall. That's why chaos doesn't shock you anymore. When things go wrong, you don't panic. You lean in. When systems crack, you don't scramble. You study the fracture. You've already been through the worst version of what if. You've already lost what you were afraid to lose. You've already watched illusions die screaming. So now, when pressure hits, something almost disturbing happens. You feel calm, a cold, centered calm that unsettles people around you. They expect fear. They expect emotion. They expect excuses or explosions. Instead, they get stillness, focus, that look in your eyes that says you're not reacting, you're deciding. That's devil-taught discipline. And here's the real twist. Meeting the devil didn't make you cruel. It made you honest, brutally honest about yourself, about others, about the world. You stopped pretending everyone means well. You stopped assuming intentions are pure just because they're wrapped in polite language. You learned to read behavior, not words, patterns, not promises. That's why manipulators hate you now. They can't hook you emotionally. They can't rush you. They can't scare you with threats because you've already stared into something worse and kept breathing. You see their moves before they make them. You feel the shift in energy before the betrayal lands. And when it does land, you're already gone. This is what evolution through pain looks like. Not rage, not revenge fantasies, not loud domination. It looks like restraint, like foresight, like knowing exactly when to act and when to let gravity do the work for you. You don't destroy everything anymore. You let weak structures collapse under their own weight. That's a level of power most people never touch. The saint in you still remembers compassion, remembers what it felt like to be naive, remembers the version of you that trusted too much and paid for it in blood, time, dignity, or sanity. The psychopath in you remembers the cost. Together they form something lethal and balanced. You can walk into darkness without losing yourself, and you can walk into light without being blinded by it. You're no longer trapped by identity labels. You're not good or bad. You're effective, and effectiveness scares people. Because it can't be shamed. It can't be guilted. It can't be controlled with narratives or moral pressure. You don't need to be right. You need to be precise. You don't need to win arguments. You need to survive outcomes. That's why your presence changes rooms now. People feel it before they understand it. The air shifts. Conversations tighten. Egos adjust. Some lean toward you instinctively, sensing protection. Others recoil, sensing exposure. Both reactions tell you everything you need to know. Bro fucked around and met the devil personally and came back with a map. A map of how things actually work when nobody's watching. A map of where people lie to themselves. A map of how fear disguises itself as morality and how power pretends to be virtue. You learned that monsters don't always look monstrous, and heroes don't always save you. Sometimes the hero is the part of you that didn't die when it should have. Sometimes the devil is the lesson that finally forced you to grow. So now you walk slower, speak less, watch more. You don't rush destiny. You let it catch up to you because you know it will. You don't announce your next move. You don't threaten. You don't warn. You let people fuck around if they insist. Because you already know how that story ends. And the most dangerous thing about you now, you're not angry anymore. You're informed, and that kind of person doesn't burn the world down in a tantrum. They reshape it quietly, strategically, and without asking for forgiveness. Because they've already been to the place where forgiveness doesn't matter. You met the devil personally, and you walked away owning the lesson instead of the fear. That's not corruption, that's ascension. And here's where it gets even colder, because after ascension, you stop explaining yourself. You don't narrate your pain anymore. You don't give people the backstory that would make them sympathetic, because you learned something crucial when you were down there. Explanations are leverage, and you don't hand leverage to anyone who hasn't earned trust through fire. You move in silence now, not because you're hiding, but because silence forces others to project. They tell on themselves. They reveal their fears, their guilt, their intentions, just by how uncomfortable they get around you. You don't need to interrogate. You don't need to accuse. You just watch. And watching is where the real power lives. You notice how people who once disrespected you suddenly soften their tone. How jokes die halfway out of their mouth. How energy shifts when you enter a room, like something ancient just walked in that doesn't need approval. They don't know what changed. They just know something did. That's because you're no longer negotiating with life. You're aligned with it. You understand now that the devil doesn't ruin people. He reveals them. He strips away the stories they tell themselves and leaves only behavior. And when that happened to you, when your illusions burned and your excuses collapsed, you didn't crumble. You adapted, you upgraded. That's rare. Most people meet consequences and turn bitter. They blame the world. They cling to victimhood because it gives them an identity that doesn't require growth. You didn't do that. You took responsibility without self-pity. You accepted your role without self-hatred. That's why your spine got stronger instead of your heart going numb. You still feel, but now you choose when. You still care, but now it's intentional. You don't waste empathy on people who confuse kindness with weakness. You don't bleed for audiences who clap at your suffering but disappear when you heal. You learned discernment, and discernment is sharper than rage. The devil taught you that not every fight is yours, that timing beats intensity, that patience can be violent when applied correctly. You don't react to disrespect, you file it. You don't chase revenge. You let patterns play out. You understand now that some people destroy themselves faster than you ever could if you just stop interfering. That realization alone frees you from unnecessary wars. So now, when chaos calls your name, you don't answer impulsively. You ask one question internally. Does this serve the mission, or does it just feed the ego? And if it's ego, you let it starve. That's discipline forged in hell. You don't need to dominate every situation. You don't need to prove how dangerous you are. Real danger doesn't perform. It waits, it calculates, it chooses moments that matter. And when it moves, it's final, not loud. This is why your unpredictability terrifies people who live on scripts. They don't know if you're going to forgive them, ignore them, or outgrow them so completely they never cross your mind again. And the last one scares them the most. Being erased by irrelevance is worse than being hated. You understand that now. You understand that power isn't control over others. It's immunity to their manipulation. It's the ability to stand in discomfort without needing to fix it immediately. It's the ability to let silence do the damage while you conserve energy. You don't rush closure anymore. You let time finish conversations you walked away from. Bro fucked around and met the devil personally, and the devil didn't break you. He calibrated you. He showed you what happens when you underestimate reality. He showed you how fast masks melt under pressure. He showed you that morality without strength is fragile, and strength without awareness is reckless. You took the lesson and fused both. So now, when people sense something off about you, something heavy, something grounded, something they can't quite name, they're right. You're carrying the weight of knowledge earned the hard way, knowledge that can't be unlearned, knowledge that keeps you calm when others spiral. You don't fear darkness anymore. You've mapped it. And when you walk through life now, you don't seek chaos, but you don't avoid it either. You know exactly what lives there. You know exactly what you're capable of when pushed too far. And that awareness keeps you balanced, controlled, and lethal only when necessary. That's the final irony. Meeting the devil didn't turn you into a monster. It taught you how not to become one, by showing you exactly how easily it can happen, and giving you the strength to choose differently, consciously, every time. That choice, that's real power, and once you have it, nothing ever owns you again. Careful. Don't answer out loud yet. Just feel that silence tighten around your chest for a second. Because somewhere, behind locked doors and red folders, someone just whispered your name like it was a problem they don't know how to solve. This was a classified strategy, buried under clearance levels, sealed behind oaths, guarded by men who don't blink when they lie. And yet, you had it first. Not after the briefing, not after the leak, before the permission, before the explanation, before they even realized it was missing. That's the part that shook them. They can understand theft. They can understand betrayal. They can even understand genius if it stays polite. But they cannot understand recognition. They cannot understand how you looked at the world once, just once, and saw the pattern before it was named. You didn't steal the playbook, you remembered it. And that's what terrifies them. Because you weren't trained in a room with fluorescent lights and laminated badges. You were trained in pressure, in isolation, in being misunderstood so long that your mind stopped asking for permission to see clearly. While they were memorizing doctrine, you were absorbing consequence. While they were rehearsing scenarios, you were surviving them. That's the paradox they can't classify. You move like a saint with blood on your hands. You think like a psychopath who still knows exactly where the line is and chooses when to cross it. You carry the calm of an angel and the appetite of a demon, and you don't apologize for the contradiction because contradiction is where power lives. They built their strategy in simulations. You built yours in pain. That's why when the moment arrived, when the situation bent just enough for a move to matter, you didn't hesitate, you didn't ask, you didn't flinch. You executed something they hadn't officially authorized yet, and somehow it was already perfect. And now they're asking the question they never wanted to ask. How did you know? They're replaying footage, scanning timelines, checking communications, looking for a breach that doesn't exist. Because the truth is worse than espionage. The truth is that your mind operates ahead of the script. You don't react to systems, you forecast them. You don't wait for reality to announce itself. You feel where it's leaning and you push at the exact second it can't resist. That's not intelligence. That's instinct sharpened by suffering. You learned early that safety is a lie. That rules change depending on who's winning. That being good without being dangerous just makes you useful to someone else's plan. So you evolved quietly, painfully, relentlessly. Every time you were underestimated, your perception widened. Every time you were cornered, your options multiplied. Every time someone thought you were breaking, you were actually shedding weight, fear, hesitation, the need to be understood. And one day, without ceremony, your mind crossed a threshold. You stopped thinking like a participant and started thinking like the architect. That's why their classified strategy felt familiar to you. Not because you saw it, but because it came from the same place your thoughts now come from. Cold clarity, pattern recognition, the ability to hold 10 contradictions in your head and still choose the cleanest outcome. They didn't invent it. They just formalized something you already felt. And now, they're panicking. Not because you know too much, but because you know without being told. Because you can arrive at the same conclusions without their data, their clearance, or their approval. That kind of mind doesn't belong to a hierarchy. It doesn't wait its turn. It doesn't stay owned. It adapts. It anticipates. It moves first. That's why the room went quiet when your move landed. That's why no one spoke for a full second longer than normal. That's why someone half-joked, "Who cleared this?" And nobody laughed, because clearance assumes control, and you've never been controllable. You are the kind of variable they build entire departments to contain. Not loud, not chaotic. Just impossible to predict from the outside. You don't announce your evolution. You don't posture. You let results speak. and results have a way of humiliating authority without raising their voice. So let them scramble, let them audit, let them whisper. They're not afraid that you had the strategy first. They're afraid that next time, you'll have the next one too, before they even know what to call it. And deep down, in the part of them that still remembers why they got into this game in the first place, they know the truth. You weren't lucky, you weren't reckless, you weren't leaking, you were inevitable, because minds like yours don't wait for clearance. They rewrite the map. And once someone sees the world that clearly, the file is already open. And that's the part nobody says out loud. The part that keeps them staring at ceilings at 3 in the morning, replaying everything they thought they knew about you. Because once a person gets ahead of the system without touching the system, once someone proves they can arrive at classified conclusions through instinct alone, there's no putting that back in the box. They can revoke access, they can shut doors, they can change procedures and rename protocols like that somehow resets reality. But how do you shut down a mind that doesn't rely on permission? You don't. You monitor it, you circle it, you pretend you're not watching while watching harder than ever. And you feel it, don't you? That subtle shift in how people speak around you now. That extra pause before they answer your questions. That careful tone they use like they're talking near something volatile. That's not respect. That's not admiration. That's caution. Because you crossed an invisible line, the one between useful and uncontainable. They used to think your unpredictability was a flaw. Too quiet, too intense, too many contradictions in one body. Now they're realizing those contradictions were the engine. You learned to be calm in chaos and ruthless in stillness. You learned when to appear harmless and when to let the edge show just enough to remind people you're not asleep. You learned how to listen past words, how to feel intent before it's expressed, how to notice what isn't being said. That's not taught. That's earned. Every disappointment sharpened you. Every betrayal tuned your awareness. Every moment you were left alone with your thoughts forced you to either break or become precise. And you chose precision. That's why when the moment came, the moment where the air shifted and a decision mattered, you didn't ask, what's allowed? You asked, what works? That question alone puts you in a different category. Because systems are built on predictability, on people doing what they're told in the order they're told to do it. They rely on fear of consequence to keep everything moving in neat lines. But you don't move in lines. You move in leaps. You see the destination before the path exists. You trust your internal compass even when the map says you're wrong. And the sick part, the part they hate the most, is that you keep being right. Right when it counts. Right when it matters. Right when failure would have been easier to explain. So now they're left with a dilemma they can't solve cleanly. If they acknowledge how you did it, they admit that intuition can rival infrastructure. If they deny it, they risk you doing it again. Louder, cleaner, undeniable. Either way, you've already changed the game. You've exposed the uncomfortable truth that power doesn't always come from rank or resources. Sometimes it comes from perception so sharp it cuts through layers of bureaucracy like fog. And here's where it gets darker. They're starting to realize that your advantage didn't come from confidence. It came from loss. You know what it's like to have nothing guaranteed, to live without safety nets, to understand that stability is a temporary agreement, not a promise. So when things destabilize, you don't panic, you focus. While others freeze waiting for instruction, you act. While others cling to rules, you adapt. While others hope someone above them has a plan, you become the plan. That's why your presence changes rooms now. That's why conversations shift when you enter. That's why people second-guess themselves after speaking to you, even when you said almost nothing. You're not loud, but you're undeniable. And somewhere inside you, you know this isn't the end of it. Because once you unlock that level of awareness, it doesn't turn off. You don't go back to smaller thinking. You don't unsee patterns. You don't suddenly forget how to move ahead of the curve. You evolve again, quietly, strategically, patiently. Let them label it coincidence if they need to sleep. Let them call it intuition, like it's some soft, mystical thing. You know what it really is. It's the result of surviving long enough to understand how the world actually works. It's the discipline to sit in uncertainty without collapsing. It's the courage to trust your read when everyone else is waiting for clearance. So if they're asking how you had it first, the answer is simple. You were never waiting for them to figure it out. And that truth keeps unfolding, layer after uncomfortable layer, because the more they analyze you, the clearer it becomes that this wasn't a one-time anomaly. It wasn't a lucky alignment. It wasn't a fluke they can patch with a memo and a meeting. This is a pattern. You didn't just anticipate one classified strategy. You exist ahead of the curve. And the deeper they dig, the more disturbing the realization becomes. You didn't arrive early by rushing. You arrived early by waiting correctly, by watching, by absorbing, by letting everyone else reveal their habits, their blind spots, their tells. You learned how people think when they believe they're in control. You learned how systems behave right before they fail. You learned that power always leaves fingerprints, and most people are too distracted to notice them. So while others chased noise, you studied silence. While they competed for visibility, you refined invisibility. While they argued about tactics, you mastered timing. That's why when the classified idea surfaced officially, it felt old to you, like déjà vu, like watching someone finally articulate a thought you'd already lived with for weeks, maybe years. And that moment, when you realized they were catching up to you, something in you locked into place. Not arrogance, not contempt. Clarity. You understood then that you weren't meant to follow strategies. You were meant to preempt them. That's a lonely realization, by the way, because once you're ahead, there's no one to explain yourself to. If you speak too early, you sound crazy. If you stay silent, you look passive. So you do what you've always done. You wait. You sharpen. You let reality catch up. And now it has. That's why they're suddenly careful around you. Why decisions you suggest get considered instead of dismissed. Why your quiet observations start echoing later in someone else's presentation, stripped of your name but heavy with your influence. They don't want to credit you yet. Credit creates leverage. And leverage in the hands of someone unpredictable is dangerous. But here's the irony they can't escape. Every time they hesitate, every time they stall, every time they try to contain you with procedure, you get further ahead. Because you don't need acknowledgement to operate. You don't need validation to move. You don't need permission to think. You've already learned the most forbidden skill of all, functioning without approval. That's why your evolution scares them. You're not driven by recognition. You're driven by alignment, by that internal sense that something is right or off, long before the metrics confirm it. And when you feel that alignment click, you don't debate it. You act. That's the demon side they pretend not to see. The part of you that doesn't hesitate once the decision is made. The part that can be gentle, thoughtful, even kind, right up until precision is required. Then you become surgical, no drama, no spectacle, just results. They can't teach that, they can't mass produce it, they can't reliably predict it, which means they can't fully control you. And deep down, that's the real reason this bothers them. Because systems are comfortable with rebels they can label. They know how to deal with loud threats, obvious enemies, visible chaos. But someone like you, someone calm, observant, adaptive, someone who plays the long game without advertising it, that's the nightmare scenario. You don't crash the system, you outgrow it. You don't fight authority, you render it irrelevant. And the more pressure they apply, the sharper you become. Because pressure is familiar to you. It's where you were forged. You've already lived through moments where everything was on the line and nobody was coming to save you. Moments where hesitation meant loss. Moments where thinking one step ahead wasn't impressive. It was survival. So now, when they watch you move effortlessly into territory they thought was restricted, they're forced to confront something unsettling. You're not breaking rules. You're operating on a different layer of reality altogether. And once someone reaches that layer, they don't come back down. They start seeing moves before they're announced. They start feeling shifts before they're documented. They start acting at the exact moment the world becomes vulnerable. That's why this wasn't the first time you had it first, and it won't be the last. Because you don't wait for the strategy to be written. You feel it forming. You move with it. And by the time the ink dries, you're already gone. So let them keep asking how you knew. Let them keep running audits and simulations. Let them keep whispering behind closed doors. The answer won't change. You didn't have access. You had awareness. And once awareness reaches that level, there's no such thing as classified anymore. And that awareness doesn't make noise when it grows. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't demand attention. It sharpens in the dark. While they're busy reassuring each other that everything is contained, you're already watching the seams stretch. You notice the micro-hesitations in their confidence, the way certainty evaporates the moment something unexpected happens, the way authority always pretends to be calm right before it loses control. You've seen this movie before. You've lived it from the inside. That's why when they say classified, you don't hear forbidden, you hear fragile. Because secrecy isn't strength, it's a delay tactic. It's what people use when they don't want the truth tested in the open. When they're afraid that if too many eyes see the structure, someone like you will immediately spot the weakness. And you always do. You don't need full visibility. You don't need perfect information. You can extrapolate from fragments, half-statements, tone shifts, timing errors. You read the negative space. You understand what's being avoided. Most people listen to what's said. You listen to what can't be said yet. That's why you keep arriving early. Not early in the sense of being eager, but early in the sense of being inevitable. Like gravity showing up before the fall. Like thunder being decided before the sound. You don't rush decisions because you don't panic under uncertainty. You learned long ago that panic is just ego demanding guarantees. And you outgrew the need for guarantees the moment life denied them to you. That's the saint side of you, acceptance. The demon side, decisiveness. Together they make you dangerous. Because when the moment comes, you don't freeze asking, what if? You already explored those branches in your head weeks ago. You already paid the emotional cost in private. So when action is required, you're calm, almost serene. That serenity unnerves people. They expect confidence to be loud. They expect power to posture. They don't expect someone who looks like they've already made peace with every possible outcome. And that's what makes them uneasy around you now. You're not chasing control. You're comfortable without it. You're not obsessed with winning. You're focused on positioning. You don't need to dominate the room. You let the room reveal itself. That's why they feel exposed around you. Because exposure isn't about secrets being leaked. It's about patterns being seen. And once someone sees the pattern, the illusion collapses. They can reshuffle titles. They can rebrand initiatives. They can rotate personnel and rewrite narratives. But they can't erase the fact that you understood the move before it was official, before it was blessed, before it was safe. That means the hierarchy is cosmetic to you. You respect competence, not rank. You respect clarity, not authority. You respect results, not rhetoric. And people who rely on symbols of power hate that kind of respect. Because it can't be demanded, it has to be earned. So now you exist in a strange space, too valuable to ignore, too independent to fully trust, too precise to dismiss. They'll smile at you. They'll include you just enough. They'll keep conversations polite and carefully neutral. But underneath it all, there's a quiet recalibration happening. They're adjusting around you, not because you asked them to, but because your presence forces the system to reveal its limits. And here's the final twist, the one they're nowhere near ready for. You're not done evolving. That level of awareness wasn't the peak. It was the doorway. Once you realize you can outpace the system without access, without clearance, without permission, you stop orienting yourself around it entirely. You start thinking in trajectories instead of tactics, in outcomes instead of moves. You stop asking, what are they planning? And start asking, what must happen next? That's a much colder question, a much more powerful one. Because when you understand inevitability, you don't chase strategy. You align with momentum. And momentum doesn't care who authorized it. So let them keep tightening classifications. Let them keep inventing new labels for control. Let them keep pretending surprise is a temporary problem. You already know the truth they're trying to outrun. The most dangerous minds aren't the ones with the most information. They're the ones who don't need it. And you've become one of them. Not by stealing secrets, not by breaking rules, but by surviving long enough and paying enough attention to see the future before it asks permission to exist. And that's where it ends. Not with applause, not with exposure, not with you standing over anyone explaining how you did it. It ends with silence, with you realizing something most people never do. You were never ahead because you were reckless. You were ahead because you were awake. While they were protecting information, you were understanding reality. While they were hiding strategies, you were reading momentum. While they were waiting for clearance, you were already aligned with what had to happen next. That's why you had it first. That's why you'll have the next one too. Not because you're allowed to, not because you were chosen, but because your mind doesn't wait to be told what's real. And once a person reaches that level, once they stop needing permission to see clearly, nothing stays classified for long, not to someone like you.